So managing finances. We're talking about managing finances in the affordable housing community. So yeah, they got their finances. You have your budget. Basically, you got bills that you have to pay, whether that's the water bill, the light bill, electric bills, um, internet bills. Sometimes there's repairs and you got to pay that. There's big jobs. So all this falls within the affordable housing community finances. So basically, it's a big deal. So what they do is they have a budget. Every year they have a budget of how much they'll need to run the property, and they'll take this budget and they break down specific line item one by one of how much budget is going to go to that specific line item. So, for example, they'll have landscaping, parking lot repairs, big repair, little repair, office supplies, um, resident activity supplies. It's all allotted. And basically, that number comes from the budget last year. So, if they ran out of budget last year, they might add some more this year. If they didn't use up the budget last year, they might take away some this year. It just depends on last year as they get like an average. But it's called a variance report. So, the variance report is one of the reports that you will be doing in the affordable housing community. It's a very important report, and basically, this report will break down the budget by annually, how much you have budgeted in your annually, and how much you have budgeted in your monthly. And basically, they take the annual budget divided by 12, and that's your monthly budget. So a lot of times, if you at the end of the month, whatever you spent, you'll include that on the report, and then you'll see if you're within budget or not. If you have questions on whether or not if you should buy something or spend money on something, that's why you have access to the variance report, so you can see the budget and see whether or not you have money for that. Some things like printer paper, coffee, pens, office supplies, those things go under the office supply budget. If you have maintenance items, tools, electrical tools, plumbing parts, they all get put into specific categories of budget in the report. So they break down each specific category, and then you get this much on there. And that's basically how the affordable housing finances work. It's how much you've spent. Also, there's the income, how much the property collects, and that's based off of parkings and tenancies. So how much money you get from your tenants, if you're charging for parking, if you're charging for storages, that's the monthly income. That's the revenue that the property's bringing in. So eventually, once you've been doing it for many years, you kind of get an idea and you see what the numbers look like, and you'll know if everybody paid or not. Of course, you have a report, and all this is on the reports, and you check the reports, and you're able to see the whether or not people paid and how much income the property's bringing in and how much budget is left in the property. So those are the finances and the reporting that they have to do. There's also subsidy. So some residents, they're on Section 8 assistance, which means that they receive a rental assistance, and that is called rental subsidy, or it's called a HAP payment, HAP, Housing Authority Payment. And what that is every month you'll get a check from them, or you'll get a money order from them, and that will have their portion of the rent. And you'll also receive a payment from the housing authority from Section 8. It'll say HAP on it, and that's usually direct deposited, and that'll cover the rest of the rent. So those are the other reportings that you have. Those are the other finances that you have to do. Some places you have to pull them. So in some places, it's automatically entered in there. The HAP payments are automatically sent to your ledger, and you don't have to do anything. In some places, you have to go to a specific website and pull the receipt, and that receipt will be a PDF that'll have the name and how much money that person is receiving in a housing assistance payment. And then you have to go into your ledger and one by one enter those dollar amounts. And if anything's mistaken, you got to check it. That's a little bit more complicated because sometimes they do negative payments. So you have to do what is called a zero receipt. And so I'll go into that later on. That's also managing finances. And that's basically when you're working with your ledger is kind of fucked up, and You might have a negative charge and a positive charge, and they could cancel each other out, but for some reason they're not. So you do what is called a zero receipt. You do that. It's a little bit more advanced, but it's a way to even it out so that that this negative charge and this positive charge goes away, and you just end up with one charge. So then you won't have so many line items, because what you have to do is you have to submit what is called a variance report and a receivable report. So your variance report is how much you've spent, and the receivable report is how much you brought in. And the receivable report will have all the line items. And so that's why you don't want to have a bunch of line items. In fact, the receivable report, you want it to be empty. In other words, everybody paid and nobody owes anything, so that when you run a receivable report, there's no names on there. So that's what your boss would appreciate, and that's how you could be more successful, because it basically means that nobody owes. So that's your receivable report, your variance report, your HAP, housing assistance payment receipts. We also run electronic income verification. That is one of the reports relating to finances, not to property finances, but more to resident finances. So I'll talk more about that in the compliance side, in the software side. I had made a software video. I don't know what happened. It got messed up. Something got messed up there. It was all in slow motion. But what I'll do is I'll re-upload that video, because I want you guys to have a really good information. I want you guys to have that knowledge. So those are the property management reports that you have to submit. Whenever you process rent payments as well, you scan them, so you have a check or a money order, and generally you'll have a scanning machine in your office that you're able to put checks into to scan them, and those will scan into your computer, and then you can cash them into your ledger. Ledger, for in case you don't know, ledger is basically like the where all the numbers and all the payments go for a specific household. It's called the ledger. So yeah, the check scanner, once you scan all those checks in there, that'll print out its own little report that's like a receipt of who got what the distribution was. So the name of the person and how much they paid. And that's very important to check, because you want to cross-reference all of this. You want to double check how much the check amount is. So when you have a check, there'll be a written amount and there'll be a dollar amount. And you want to look at both of those and make sure whatever's written is the same as the dollar amount. And if it's not the same, then you have to send the check back. Some places, they'll let you change it. They'll let you fuck with the check. Don't do that. It just creates more problems. Believe me, I've been in places where they've specifically told me that you could change the check if it's wrong, but it literally creates more problems. So just don't do it. Just send it back. It's a pain in the ass for the resident, but hey, they need to get it right, okay? They can't tell you $500 here and write down $3 there and let you figure it out, because it doesn't work that way. But after you double check all that and you process those rents, you'll get another report. It's like a receipt. So that's another one of your finance reports that you get. So all these finance reports, you're printing them out and you're saving them and you're putting them in a safe place, because you'll have to report these later, save them, send them up whenever they're asked for. So those are basically the financial reporting and property management reports that you will be doing.